ladies and gentlemen. I'm William Bell with Resource TV, and with me today are my delightful guests, Linda Ash and David Bryan. Welcome.
Good morning.
All right, we're going to take just a few minutes to introduce them. Basically, let me tell you what we do here at Resource TV. We help to spotlight businesses, especially those that are on the move like Linda and David. So what we want to do is give them an opportunity to share their business with you today. Now, David Bryan and Linda Ash are committed to serving their clients and making the home buying and selling process as easy as possible. They're detail-oriented, dependable, efficient, focusing on service, not sales. They're delighted to maintain continual communication throughout your buying and selling experience. In addition to the advantages of working with the realtor team, their approach to marketing your home has delivered proven results for over 25 years. The first year they sold real estate won them Rookie of the Year. They had exceeded all first-year agents with their number of transactions and sales volumes in the history of the company. Now, Linda is now a member of the multi-million-dollar club through the Memphis Association of Realtors.
So is David now.
Okay, well, great. Congratulations, David. And prior to becoming a real estate professional, David worked in the foundation repair industry. He is a native Memphian and graduated from Christian Brothers University in Memphis with a degree in mechanical engineering. With his background and experience, David brings a wealth of knowledge to his clients when they are buying or selling a home. Linda has a business management degree from Troy State University in Alabama and a master's in education from the University of Memphis. She is a former instructional technology director for Memphis City Schools, regional director for Scholastic Education, and director of distance learning for St. Agnes Academy in Memphis. Her extensive technology background is used effectively to market your home in today's high-tech world. Both Linda and David are members of the Memphis Association of Realtors, Tennessee Association of Realtors, and National Association of Realtors. Outstanding accomplishments for both of them. And Linda is a member of the Le Passé Salvation Army, Women's Auxiliary Board member for the City University Boys Prep School in Memphis, and former board member for the Germantown Arts Alliance. After becoming widow and widower, David and Linda married in 2010, and they have 3 grown children.
We do.
All right. Well, once again, welcome to Resource TV.
Thank you.
It's a delight to have you both here, and we're going to talk about your favorite subject.
Let's see, what would that be?
All right.
Helping people buying and selling homes.
Yeah, okay. But before we do that, let's get to know you two a little bit better. You know, I think this is the cutest couple in real estate, ladies and gentlemen. So let's talk a little bit about your background, you know, how you met and how these two various and diverse careers came together to form the Ash Bryan team.
Okay. Well, we, as you said earlier, we married in 2010, and I have one son, and David has a son and a daughter here. They knew each other in Memphis, so we've wanted to stop traveling and really work on a career that we felt we both had some expertise. So coming together and making the team approach with our two diverse backgrounds has really proven to be effective in the buying and selling for homeowners, because with your engineering background and my side on the marketing, it makes it unique. So I really help find the houses. We both show homes, but then once a transaction begins, David really can work with the inspectors and can work with the repair people to make sure that's done right. So I think that lends a whole different dimension to our competitors, and it makes it a really unique situation and really benefits both the buyers and the sellers.
Okay, excellent. Now let's talk a little bit about the emphasis on service. Why is service so important in the real estate industry, and can you give us some comparisons or maybe some situations that really emphasize that?
Sure. I would say the service side, because once let's say you're on the selling side, we list your home. Once it's listed and once we have a contract on it, there's a lot of steps that go between just getting the offer, having the contract, and then actually going to close. There's a lot of pieces in between. That's where your expertise is so important as we work through.
Yeah, we like to say that the work starts when you get the contract signed, because it's not done until you close the deal. And there's so much that goes on between the signing of the contract and going to the closing table. The inspections and the repairs, all that has to be done, and there's always problems. And The one thing we've learned in the short time we've been in real estate is how much people don't know about real estate and about buying and selling a house, and about all the things that go on in that process. So being two of us with varied backgrounds gives us, I think, a leg up on the competition on being able to help our clients.
Okay, now you mentioned something that I think is very important, and that's education. Of course, Linda has an education background as well. So what is the industry doing to help educate the average person out there, or the buyers and the sellers, to prepare for the selling or the buying of a home?
Well, one thing I would say on the buying of the home here in Tennessee, there are, when you work with a real estate agent, typically you think, or the public thinks, well, you just, when you're selling a house that you list and that's the agent you work with. But on the buying side, having a buyer's agent is also equally, if not more important, because when you think about it, when a person does list their house and that agent is working for that seller, that agent's trying to get as much money or have the deal work for that seller that they're working for. But you've got the buyer right here, and I think that's where the public gets a little confused, because you want to make sure you're an advocate for the person buying the home, whether it's a repair, which your expertise is in as far as helping to work with the repair people, or just in the transaction.
Right, but if if the seller has an agent, and that's the only agent involved, and the buyer has no agent, then they are not represented. And a lot of people don't realize that seller's not going to look out for that buyer, and that seller's agent is not going to. So they really need to have an agent representing them in the buying process as well. The Memphis Area Association of Realtors does some advertising to explain to people the importance of using a realtor, but probably a lot more could be done, because a lot of people still buy and sell without realtors. And there are so many pitfalls out there, so many things that you can buy a house and a year, 5 years, or 10 years down the road, something you didn't know about that didn't get taken care of because you weren't properly represented can come back and bite you.
It was interesting. The other day, I was at one of our closing offices that we use, and I was taking an earnest money check back for an upcoming closing, and a young man was in there with his wife, and they decided to sell their house on their own, and didn't know them from anyone, but the closing agent told me when they finished, because I was in the hallway, and she said that they were really surprised because they didn't realize they had agreed to pay some of the closing costs for the buyer. So when they looked at the bottom line, what they were going to receive for their house, they didn't realize that was different than what they thought it was going to be, because they didn't realize the contract said it's 9 pages, the state contract. So it's pretty complicated. You have to make sure you go through each section, because had they been represented in the selling transaction, they would have realized that they didn't have to pay, or they would have understood what they were paying in the closing costs, because they actually ended up paying both buyer and seller, and that's done many times, but they weren't aware of it. And so when they calculated their net proceeds, it was about $6,000 less, which was going to affect them in the purchase of their other house. So there's, like David said, there's a lot of pitfalls out there. You have to be very careful, because whether you're buying or selling, it is very important to have a realtor. And people think, well, I'm going to save the commission, but by the time you pay for advertising on the selling of it, or you make a mistake like that, you've more than compensated and paid your commission back. So it is. If you don't do this every day, it's a very complicated process.
Okay, so now you've gotten down into the very serious side of the real estate business and the buying and selling process. And David sort of introduced it as well a little bit in terms of things that people don't know. So let's talk a little bit more specifically about some of the things. Now, I remember you did a talk some time back, and you talked about 10 mistakes that buyers make, and I'll let you talk a little bit more about that. But why don't you, let's just go through some of those so that the listeners can understand what they should be aware of.
So on the buying side.
Okay, on the buying side.
Yeah, one thing is it's very important in the very beginning to be sure, before you even start looking at houses, that you connect with a mortgage loan officer. We have several that we work with, but there's a lot out there. You may be the bank you work with every day and that knows you. But go to that person. They have different products. There's different types of loans. And in certain circumstances, there may be some assistance that you can qualify for. But you want to have that done first, because you don't want to be looking at $550,000 houses if you can really qualify for a $200,000 house. So you really want to make sure that that way you're focusing your search in the area where you feel comfortable with what the payment would be and what you can really afford. So that's number one. When you go to make your offer, you really need to have what they call a pre-approval letter, so that that seller knows that you do have the funds or have the means to be able to close on the house. Because once you make an offer and there's an acceptance and there's a binding agreement, it pretty much takes it off the market. I mean, it's still active in many cases until you get through the inspections and the appraisal process. But for the most part, other agents will stay clear of it because they realize you're working an offer. So it's important, number one, to have, that's the first thing. People go out and they get on some of these other sites that have homes that are advertised for sale. People, either it's for sale by owner, or even they pick up the feeds from the MLS to advertise homes in the area on the market. But number one, you want to make sure that you are working with a loan officer, so you know exactly how much you can afford. You want to then interview some agents to be sure that you are getting a personality and someone that you feel confident is going to work for you, even if it's on the buying side.
Let me interrupt you there. Now, what kind of questions would a person ask a real estate professional, a realtor, if they want representation by them? What was some questions that you would suggest?
I would say the main thing is if you're concentrating on one area of the city or one type of price range or house, you want to interview an agent that's very familiar with that area. Whether you're looking at schools or amenities, if you want to make sure that, I mean, for example, we live in East Memphis, so we know a lot about East Memphis restaurants and a lot about that area. We've lived in other areas of the city, so we're very familiar with some of the other areas also. But you want to make sure that agent's very familiar with that community and how that works, because that way they will be able to kind of guide you with what's available in those areas. Wouldn't you say that's a good one?
That's a good one. The other one is to ask for some referrals. People that they've helped in the past, so they can give them a call and see what kind of job they did for them and how happy people were with them.
Even after the sale, it's important because usually everything is completed when the closing occurs, but once in a while, if it, like say for example, a window pane had to be replaced and the glass wasn't in yet, but it's been paid for, you want to make sure that those agents are going to follow up and make sure that all those little items are done, even if it did end up being after closing. So it's important, and like you said, definitely referrals. It's important that someone else has actually had the experience with that team or that agent does communicate that and find out a little bit about who you're working with.
Okay. All right. What are some of the legal issues? I don't know if that's included in some of the mistakes that people make, but what are some of the legal problems or challenges that people may face during this process?
The largest or the most important, especially if you're placing your house on the market, if you're going to list your home to sell. In Tennessee, there are state contracts that are used throughout the state, and those have been looked at by attorneys, and they have the correct language in there. Now, they have changed the rules this year, and only a licensed agent have access to those. Because you've got to actually put your name at the bottom of who generated that form. But what's important, one of the major things that's very important is the Tennessee residential property disclosure. If you've lived in that home, the homeowner is to fill out about a 6-page document.
6-page document, yeah.
That kind of is an inventory of what they know about the home, tells a story about that home. Some people that are not that don't have a professional working with them may not know what to fill out. They may not disclose something that could legally down the road come back to haunt them. So you need to tell everything. If you don't know something about the home, you can't fabricate it, but you want to make sure you tell everything on that form that you know about that house. If there was a foundation issue, if there was a sinkhole, or there was something and it's been changed, you need to disclose it. And that's not going to necessarily run someone off, but you have to make sure that it is truthfully stated on that disclosure.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay.
That's important.
All right, David, this question is for you. With your engineering background and your experience in terms of the mechanics, if you please, of the home, what are some of the common things that you look for or that come up in a situation, where there are some problems with the actual structure of the house?
It's everything from foundation to maybe deteriorated structural components and things of that nature. Electrical systems are another big one, having faulty circuit breaker boxes or breaker boxes that maybe have breakers in them that historically we know are a problem. I have to be very careful talking about those things with people. I don't do it as an expert, even though I know what I'm talking about. Well, I'm a real estate agent now, so I can just simply point out those as potential problems and recommend that they get an expert to look at it and confirm what I say. Foundations, electrical are the two biggest things that we run into.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. Well, Linda, is there anything else that you'd like to share that's important in the process of helping and assisting people as their realtor?
Well, the main item that I'd like to make sure that everyone sees is on the Tennessee Association of Realtors website. They do have two we call consumer documents. One is for if you're selling a home, what it really means to have a designated agent working for you, and the same on the buying side for the buyer. So I would highly recommend that if someone is considering buying or selling, that they go to the Tennessee Association of Realtors website and look at those consumer documents so they understand what the agency relationship is. Because it's very important on both sides, and you do want representation. It's in most cases the largest purchase or largest event that someone is going to do in their life is buying or selling a home. So they want to make sure that they have the right representation so that something doesn't happen down the road, and they make sure that it's a pleasant experience.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, now we're in the Memphis Mid-South area. Can you give us some indication on the state of the market here in this area compared to maybe the nation, the national scene, and about the availability of properties, et cetera? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I feel, and I know we've chatted about this a lot. I mean, it is very busy right now. There are a lot of buyers that are now looking at the rates. They're still very low. The forecast may change in the next year or so. So there are a lot of buyers that have maybe never owned a home or want to move up. So there's a lot in the area to buy. The selling side, we're still low in inventory in Memphis. Some areas, if it's we find if it's priced correctly and it's clean and neat and I'll say staged. I mean, one of the things that we pride ourselves in is when we go in and work with a seller, we suggest getting a house ready to show is totally different than the way you live. Even if you are a neat freak and even everything's picked up and it's really nice, there's just two totally different looks. So we want to go in and make sure that we are decluttering. We have a lot of tips, and we walk through every room and kind of help. It doesn't cost anything. I mean, just tell the buyer what to do and kind of make sure that the room shows its best light. So I think that's very important. And I would say we kind of call it a neutral market right now. I mean, there's still a lot of buyers that are asking for closing costs, but for paid by the seller. But it's changed a little bit. How would you add to that?
I think that's the biggest thing to talk about is in the country as a whole. The country has really almost recovered from the recession, but Memphis was kind of last to suffer from the recession, and they're last to come out of it.
Kind of first hit and the last to recover.
And they're just now beginning to come out. A lot of areas of the country have already converted back to a seller's market, which is really a good thing because it's been a buyer's market too long. And Memphis is slowly getting there. Prices have recovered some, but they still haven't recovered, and it'll still be a long time before they get to pre-recession levels again. But it's moving in that direction. The low mortgage rates are really huge, but the lack of inventory is the problem. And one of the reasons we still don't have much inventory is builders have been so hesitant to get back in and build any volume of houses. And without that new construction for people to move into and create existing house market. It's going to take a time to do that.
Okay.
But it is moving there very slowly.
All right. Well, as we kind of wind down, what I'd like to ask you is about your success philosophy. Because you're extremely successful. I mean, you've been doing this for 25 years, and you started off successful. You were like the number one rookie of the year.
We've been in sales for 25 years.
Okay.
We've actually been in real estate about 3 years now.
Oh, okay.
But we brought the same, expertise
Yeah, and that's
as
what's
far
important.
as sales.
Yes.
Because, I don't think it's necessarily the longevity in one profession. I think, there are some common threads in sales.
Exactly.
Service. It's not about the commission for us. It's about making sure that the house truly is the right house for someone, and that then the process goes smoothly for them. And I think that's where our success has come. We had thought in the beginning. We said to ourselves, well, if we sold a house or two, and I think the first few months, we didn't even have a full year. 6 months we closed. How many transactions?
About 20 transactions in the first 6 months, which is unheard of.
It is. Even my son's been just amazed. But I think it just goes back to the values, and there's a lot of great agents out there, and we've cooperated with a lot of great agents when they've been on the other side of the transaction. Mm-hmm. But I do believe it's the follow through and the combination, and we tell our clients, whether it's on the buying or selling side, because you have two of us in our diverse expertise, it makes a big difference in the transaction. On the selling side, we've picked up a lot of listings that had been on the market. They said we had 2 showings the whole 6 months, and we went back on and looked at the pictures, for example. That's just one, because the whole industry's changed now with the internet, and we've invested in high-end equipment. We make sure that those pictures are capturing the house and telling a great story, because we've gone online and looked at the same house, and it doesn't look like the same house, because you've got to make sure that certain things look the certain way to make sure that when it invites someone in with those pictures. So that's just one little trick that we've kind of mastered, and you're the master of the photography. But there's some, I think common threads when you're in sales is whether you're selling real estate or you're selling school books. You want to always make sure that you take care of your customer during the transaction and afterwards. I think that's been our success.
Another key thing that has helped us, and it's really critical for people selling their house, is getting it priced right on the front end. And that's the hardest thing in this market. We weren't lucky enough to be in the market previous to this where houses were appreciating in value. So they've been depreciated, and people have lost 20% of their value. And so when you go talk to them about putting their house on the market, they look at you like you have 3 heads when you tell them the price you recommend, because they look at their house as the investment they put into it, all the improvements they've done, and it's their house, and they're emotionally attached to it. The market doesn't care about any of that. The market is the market. So a lot of times we're recommending a price many thousands of dollars less than they think, but that's the market.
Yeah, that's a very important point that you bring up, because I was always taught that an investment is worth what people are willing to pay for it. And that works in the stock market and in anything else. People say, well, I've invested all this money, but when your stock goes down, you can either sit there and wait on it, or you can sell and take what profit you have and keep from losing more. So that's a very important thing for people to get and understand when they're doing their property. Well, go ahead, Linda.
I was going to say, if someone is interested in putting their house on the market, even if it's a couple of years out, or they're considering some remodels, we have a lot of tips on what will make a difference as far as increase in the price versus some nice to haves that you may want to invest in your home, but it won't necessarily bring extra revenue in or extra value in when you go to sell. So, and there's a fine balance, because you want to enjoy life, and if you want a nice deck on the back, or you want a nice landscape, it may help a little bit. You may not recoup all that money. So those are some points that even if you were a couple of years out, you're going to transfer, you're going to downsize or upside, and you want to determine whether or not you want to make that investment. Call us. We're glad to come over and look at it, even if you're not in the market right now. So.
Okay, very good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the real deal. This is the couple that can get it done for you, and they have an excellent track record both in service and in sales in terms of real estate, and that's why they're number one. Well, Linda and David, give us some information on how you can be reached.
Okay, I think the best way to reach us would be on our website, www.ashbryanteam.com, or call our office at 901-682-1868. And you can get our cell phones also on our website. So that's probably the best way to get us.
Okay, very good.
Thank you so much.
Any last words?
I'm all done. Got a lot of words out of me, all right?
Okay, well, I think we've had a great time. It's been exciting talking to Linda and David. They always bring a wealth of information, as well as, great personalities. They're wonderful people to work with, and I do recommend that you contact them if you are in the business of selling or buying a home. If you want to do that and you want to do it safely and you want to do it successfully, these are the people to contact, the Ash Bryan team. I'm William Bell. You've been watching Resource TV, and once again, this was an opportunity for us to educate you on what's going on in your world as far as business and in the real estate industry, particularly with Linda and David. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.